If you've ever visited Japan or have seen videos of the country, you're most likely going to notice one outstanding factor about it: its infrastructures. Japan's infrastructures are one of the best in the entire world. They have the renowned Shinkansen, which is the bullet train. They have state-of-the-art railway systems that can handle millions of people every single day. As a matter of fact, here's a graph of the Tokyo Metro data as published by the Metro Ad Agency of Japan. As you can see, they have an average daily ridership of over 6.84 million people. The infrastructure necessary to support such immense ridership is nothing short of extraordinary. And on top of that, it is well known that Japan's railway system is designed not only for efficiency, but also for safety, reliability, and comfort. Its railway system is, of course, just one of many infrastructures out there in Japan. Their country has some of the best bridges, highway systems, urban infrastructures, and so on. But you might wonder, how? How does Japan perform so well on infrastructure? Well, one of the factors out there is none other than their government. The Japanese government is a heavy investor in the country's infrastructure system. Here's a graph with data that we collected from the OECD on infrastructure investment for rail in the year 1995, which is the earliest data that is available published by the OECD. As you can already see, Japan's investment in the rail sector is over 8.4 billion euros, which is much more than any other country out there. The United States, which had an economy larger than that of Japan, was only investing 4.5 billion euros. Here's another table from the same source on the infrastructure investment in roads. Japan, in 1995, had invested a massive 71.5 billion euros, which is considerably so much more than the second largest investor, which is the United States, at only 29.6 billion euros. In both of these graphs, Japan's investments are massive. Let's take a closer look at their historical data from 1995 to 2006. As you can see, Japan's investment in their rail infrastructure continues to be worth billions of euros every single year. And in most of these years from 1995 to 2006, Japan was always ahead of many other major developed countries out there, except for a select few years. Even in 2020, Japan was ahead with an investment of over 17 billion euros, with France following with only 10.7 billion euros. Here's another graph with data that we collected from the Ministry of Finance in Japan showing the public works-related expenditure in trillions of yen. As you can see, Japan's investment has been massive, but it has declined from the highs of the late 1990s. Nevertheless, these figures are still significant. In 2020, for instance, the spending was over 9.3 trillion yen, which in US dollars is about 85 billion, a figure that is spent only in these public works-related expenditures. Let's compare this deeper using a concept called General Government Fixed Capital Formation, percent of GDP. This is an indicator that measures the percentage of a country's GDP that is invested by the government in long-term physical assets, such as infrastructure. By looking at this metric, we can better understand how Japan's infrastructure investment stacks up against other nations and what it reveals about the country's economic priorities. Here's a graph with data that we collected from the Ministry of Finance in Japan. As you can see, Japan's general government fixed capital formation percent of GDP has been so much higher than the United States, United Kingdom, France, and Germany. Even though the figure has fallen significantly since the 1990s, it is still way up ahead compared to these countries. This showcases just how much Japan is focused on investing in their long-term physical assets, such as infrastructures. It is easy to come to a conclusion as to why Japan does this. It's simple, right? They are just good. They are a country that focuses on the well-being of its people, and infrastructures as a main component of that plays a key role. But it's more than just that. There are three important reasons that we see here. The first is because of historical developments. The second is the natural disasters that Japan faces. And the third is the need for strong government stimulus. Let's first start with Japan's history in this matter. After the Second World War, it is well known that Japan had seen much of its infrastructure damaged. A report published by the World Bank even said that over 2.1 million households were destroyed during the war. After the war, however, Japan had concentrated investments in manufacturing and heavy industries which changed the lifestyle of Japanese citizens. But this wasn't enough for them. They needed to invest into infrastructure to sustain high economic growth. Thus, the Japanese government had then increased public works expenditures. Here's a graph with data that we collected from the World Bank on this matter. From 1946 to 1965, you can see the immense increase in public works expenditure. It is important to also know that in 1965, public works expenditure became more than 20% of Japan's general account expenditure, which is also known as the government's main budget. That means for every 10 yen that they spend, more than 2 yen were allocated specifically for infrastructure development. This historical development had then laid the foundation of Japan's quality infrastructures that we see today. Following this historical development, there's also the natural disasters that Japan faces. Every single year, Japan faces some of the world's worst natural disasters, ranging from typhoons to earthquakes. Here's a graph that we collected from Our World in data for the total economic damages from disasters as a share of GDP. As you can see, the damage varies by year as different natural disasters occur. But some of the biggest damages happened in 1995 and 2011. In 1995, the total economic damage was over 1.8% of the GDP of Japan. Some reports said that this costs more than $100 billion in damages. In 2011, another catastrophic event occurred, the Great East Japan Earthquake, also known as the Tohoku earthquake. This was much larger than what was experienced in 1995, as the country incurred economic damages of over 3.41%, which, as some reports indicate, costs the economy around $185 to $309 billion. You can even see this evidently in Japan's annual GDP growth. Here's a graph with data from the World Bank. You can see that in 2011 it was 0%, while the entire world grew at over 3.3%. Of course, as should be known, it's not just because of the disaster, as many other factors were at play in 2011, but it is still an important reason for its economic slowdown. So, why does this matter? Well, because Japan faces natural disasters, it is natural for them to invest more heavily into resilient infrastructure. They need railway systems that can withstand frequent earthquakes, typhoons, and other natural disasters. They need bridges that won't collapse, and urban infrastructures with the best flood management systems. Now, thirdly and finally, the most important piece of the story is government stimulus. Japan's economy is well known across the world for being stagnant. It hasn't grown at all since the 1990s, as you can already see from this graph right here that we collected from the World Bank. One of the ways Japan has tried to keep its economy afloat is through strong government expenditures. Here's a graph with data from the International Monetary Fund on the primary balance as a percent of GDP. Primary balance is the difference between a government's revenues and expenditures, excluding interest payments on its debt. Put simply, it shows the government's ability to manage its spending and revenues. As you can see from the graph right here, from 1990 to the recent year of 2024, the primary balance has shrunken from positive to negative. That is because Japan's government has increasingly relied on spending to support its economy. And one of the ways they have been spending on is no other than their infrastructures. Unfortunately, even though these stimulus may seem good, others don't really believe that it made Japan better. An article published back in 2009 by the New York Times said that many had concluded that these spendings did little more than sink Japan deeply into debt. And if you scroll past the article, you'll also see that the article mentioned how for every 1 trillion yen spent on infrastructures in the 1990s, it only increased the overall economic size by 1.37 trillion yen. In contrast, if they had spent that money on social services, the growth would be much more at 1.64 trillion yen, whereas for schools and education at over 1.74 trillion yen. So, while Japan's infrastructure investments are seen as one of the world's best, it came at a cost. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.